Chapter 15.
The library's an odd choice for the morning of your Seeker debut. Hermione wasn't surprised to spot Draco there at the crack of dawn, rummaging through the charms section of the library on a tumultuous Saturday morning. "I'm not brewing infernal enchantments, if that's what you were wondering," Draco remarked, pulling a copy of the Standard Book of Spells, grade 6 from the shelf, and presenting it to her. He vaguely recalled Professor Flitwick covering the Bubblehead charm back in their 6th year, but he hadn't been entirely present at the time. Sitting for his newts hadn't seemed likely, and surviving seemed an even longer shot. So the incantation had slipped his mind, but he had resolved to master the spell since yesterday afternoon. Memories of Severus destroying the Dark Diary had triggered thoughts of how the older wizard had used the charm on him, assuming Draco would remain. But asking Severus was out of the question. When he tried querying Cedric Diggory in the library, the 5th year had looked baffled and quickly buried his nose in a book, as if escaping Draco's Slytherin reputation. It hadn't dawned on Draco then that Diggory might have learned the charm specifically for the Triwizard Tournament. At least the encounter had supported Draco's old tales of admiration for the boy, which Blaise had overheard and teased him about mercilessly afterward. His reputation for sinister dark magic and rejection by Gryffindors had brought him unexpected reconciliation with his old friends. To his dismay, they'd have been pleased if he were responsible for opening the chamber. How many would he have to hex before they deserted their delusions? "What are you studying?" Hermione inquired, peering over his shoulder at an illustration depicting a head encased in a fishbowl-like bubble underwater. A bubblehead charm for today's Quidditch match? She was quick on the uptake, a quality he envied. Vince and Greg had always been easy to influence. They'd never figure anything out on their own. To ward off the rain? Draco, that's... "Nope," Draco retorted, pulling the book from her grasp. It appeared to be the lone copy in the charm section. "All's fair in love and war, Hermione. Can't have you sharing it with Potter and the Gryffindors." "And you'll teach Slytherins then? Is your plan for them to have dry faces while Gryffindor's soaked?" she snapped. Draco replied with feigned indifference. "If there's a Quidditch law against it," Draco said with a drawl, "then we're legal, and I'll just use impervious. Everyone does during rainy matches. There's no difference." "But you intend to exploit this for an undue advantage," she murmured, disapprovingly, something to give Slytherin an edge over Gryffindor. She said it like it was a crime. "Draco, you can't. Shattering your delicate morals with my villainous Slytherin schemes?" "Yes, indeed. I must be the heir of Slytherin with a heart filled with such wickedness," Draco retorted. "I don't believe you're the heir," she countered, genuinely. Irritation flickered in her eyes, affirming her sincerity, and dishonesty was never her forte. But using this solely for Slytherin is still wrong. Quidditch isn't about who's more skilled in magic, it's who excels at flying. Did Snape plant this idea? Draco bit back a rant. She wasn't wholly mistaken. The line between adhering to rules and exploiting them was thin. "Never mind. You want Gryffindor to win, and you're always with Potter and Ron. Why should your opinion matter to me?" "I trust you," Hermione whispered. "I don't see you as the heir of Slytherin, but Harry thinks I don't know, and Ron is uncertain, but they're very close." Taking Potter's side, obviously, Draco hissed, holding back tears. He noticed her bracelet glinting, but it offered little comfort. Turquoises for mental clarity. Education shouldn't be hindered by a crumbling friendship. "Tell me what to do then, Hermione. Not being the heir doesn't make me righteous. I'm using the charm," he proclaimed and marched out. His stormy departure was a bit spoiled by Madame Pants insisting he formally borrow the book, but he did eventually stomp out. Ultimately, he didn't use the spell. It was effective against water in the privacy of a sink, but he shielded the practice from his team. Even as the rain poured during the game, Draco resisted the urge. At 11, as the match approached, his nerves unraveled. Impulsively, He consumed the draft of peace Severus had gifted him last Christmas, dulling the anxiety to a manageable hum. Hermione might have called it cheating too, but Draco deemed it fair. None of the other players bore the burden of his respiratory struggles or had recently endured a liquid fiendfire explosion. The match began under a thick mist, the humidity clinging to Draco like Hermione's persistent advice. A part of him hoped she wouldn't notice his odd compliance. If she did, she'd attribute it to some lofty transformation instead of realizing he simply wanted to dodge her incessant rebukes. Above, ominous clouds hinted at a coming storm, one he recalled vividly from the past. Granted, he wished for a quick match, but not at the expense of letting Potter snatch the snitch. Memories of previous encounters, like the dishonorable 5-minute Gryffindor-Hufflepuff showdown, lingered. His thoughts wandered to the rogue bludger incident, without the need to consult his notes. He'd initially thought it was a ploy to wrongly accuse Potter as the heir of Slytherin. That idea amused him until a chilling realization hit. If such a bludger returned, Hermione would doubtless suspect him of cursing it. Draco, appointed as Seeker, once entertained the fanciful idea that Hermione might feel torn between loyalties during a Gryffindor-Slytherin clash. Any delusions of her support vanished. This time would face greater challenges since Slytherin lacked their previous broom advantage. Alas, Gryffindor seemed less troubled than he recalled, though he wished the unpredictable weather might add some chaos. Regardless, Draco had a little more experience under his belt, though he doubted it would amount to much against Potter. Past feats, like failing to overpower a first-year Potter when he used Spungify, stung, affirming that fate dictated his inferiority to Potter. Despite Flint's rousing speech, implying Gryffindor's superior Seeker was countered by Slytherin's stronger team dynamics, Draco felt less bolstered. Flint's claims of Gryffindor being weaklings, under fair weather, failed to stir his certainty. Predictably, they made agreements, which Draco liked to believe were for endless strategizing rather than a cheap jibe at Seekers. Flint's further insinuation of Gryffindor's preference by others, including Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff, struck a chord within Draco, invoking an us-against-the-world mentality. "We're stronger than them," Flint rallied. "We're the ones who carry Slytherin pride on the pitch. We must prove ourselves because they doubt us." "Slytherin," Draco declared with the others, retreating with the team under a cascade of boos and jeers. Yet, Slytherin's chants rose defiantly. Amongst the supporters, Pansy and Millie hoisted a banner, "Malfoy invincible, not invisible," as Draco initially misread. The sight irked then encouraged him, as fellow Slytherin Theo signaled support. With feigned bravado, Draco waved back, winning further applause from his peers. As Madame Hooch summoned Flint and Wood for the ceremonial handshake, completed with too much intensity, Draco privately speculated if some tension was more than competitive rivalry. Taking a firm hold of his broom, Draco focused, reminding himself its quality was unmatched on the field. He dismissed ruminations of how long it had been since truly competing. Past failures, like the last fifth-year defeat, nibbled at his confidence until a glance at Potter soured his stomach, a direct reminder of his reliance on the calm draft. "On my whistle," declared Madame Hooch. 3, 2, 1. There was no rogue bludger as they ascended, Draco trailing Potter. The bludgers kept to the correct altitude with Vince and Greg, or rather, Derek and Bull. Potter navigated the skies with ease, as the game on the pitch showed Slytherin's struggle without supreme brooms. Draco absent-mindedly fell into tracking Potter's movements instead of the snitch. Below, Adrian Pusey narrowly evaded a bludger aimed by one of the Weasleys. Draco redirected his focus, deriding his own misfit priorities. Great, he thought wryly, better and stronger indeed. "Are you going to shadow me all day, Malfoy?" Potter's voice broke his concentration. Draco sidled up on his broom, coolly retorting, "You seem to know that trick well." "Seems fair that I return the favor in the sky, Potter, since you're always on my tail on the ground," Draco taunted. Potter let out a muffled sound of irritation and deliberately turned his head away from Draco, refocusing his attention on searching for the elusive snitch once more.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this chapter, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell to stay updated with more audiobooks. Happy listening!